The review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello and welcome to Headliners, the show that has comedians read tomorrow's papers so you don't have to. My name's Dominic Frisby, and tonight on the show, as well as Ukraine, we'll be looking at the decline of Sainsbury's, the end of masks on Ryanair, and Hitler's Mercedes. With me in the studio are Steve N. Allen and Diane Spencer, but before we let them utter their truths, we go to the news with Miranda Shunker.
Thank you. The top stories from the GB newsroom. The mayor of Kherson, a port city in the south of Ukraine, says Russian soldiers have forced their way into the city's council building. The mayor has urged Russian troops to not shoot at civilians and called on residents to not leave their homes at night time. Earlier, Ukraine's government denied reports Kherson had fallen into Russian hands, which would be the first sizable city to do so since the invasion began last week. Well, more than 2,000 civilians have been killed in Ukraine since the start of the invasion. That's according to the country's emergency services. Transport hubs, hospitals, children's nurseries and many homes have been destroyed. The World Health Organization fears an imminent shortage of oxygen, cancer medicines and insulin. But President Volodymyr Zelensky says resistance has been strong and believes Russia has lost close to 6,000 troops.
Just think about this figure, 6,000. To receive what? To receive Ukraine? It is impossible. It will not happen with rockets. It will not happen with bombs, tanks, any strikes. We are on our land, and there will be an international tribunal to prosecute them for the war against us.
Well, most of the world's countries have stood together against Moscow in the United Nations to demand it withdraws its soldiers from Ukraine. In a rare emergency meeting of the General Assembly, 141 countries voted for Russia to stop its offensive immediately. 35 countries abstained and 5 countries voted against it, including Russia, Syria and Belarus. Well, earlier in the Commons, Prime Minister Boris Johnson accused Vladimir Putin of committing war crimes in Ukraine.
Putin has gravely miscalculated. In his abhorrent assault on a sovereign nation, he has underestimated the extraordinary fortitude of the Ukrainian people and the unity and resolve of the free world in standing up to his barbarism.
Well, meanwhile, the humanitarian crisis continues to grow. The UN's refugee agency says more than 874,000 people have now fled Ukraine to neighbouring countries since the conflict began. And Roman Abramovich says he's decided to sell Chelsea Football Club days after the threat of sanctions was raised in Parliament. The Russian billionaire who bought it in 2003 says he'll be setting up a charitable foundation for war victims of Ukraine, where the net proceeds of the sale will be donated. He will also not be asking for the loans he made to Chelsea be repaid. Well, on TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Now it's back to Headliners.
Thank you, Miranda. Hello and welcome to Headliners. I'm your host, Dominic Frisby. My pronouns remain me, 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 me. And tonight, the redhead is well represented on the show. Copper and proud, we have Diane Spencer and we have Steve N. Allen. How are you both? I hope you've been preparing for this show. Have you been training for the show?
Yeah, I took a 2-hour nap earlier today.
That's the kind of rigorous preparation we like to see.
I'm so jealous of his nap.
2 hours.
I was awake at 8 a.m, which I appreciate for most people is like, ooh, lucky you with your lion, you know, but for a comedian, 8 a.m. is a bit of a slog.
Right, that is the early bants out of the way. The headlines have gone to print. Let's run through them and see what they are. And we start with the Daily Mail, which runs with Camilla's anguished tears for Ukraine, with a picture of a sad-looking Camilla. What was the Daily Mail thinking? The Telegraph has first city falls to Russians, and Putin's commanders will be hunted down for war crimes, says Raab. We move on to The Guardian, which runs with, excuse me, excuse me again, Russia wants to erase us, warns Ukraine's president. I'm just going to stop for a moment and have a sip of water. I beg your pardon, and we carry on. We're back in the room, and UN votes to deplore Putin's invasion. On we go to the FT, which goes with Russians batter Ukrainian cities, with a picture of a woman crying in a bomb shelter, and Abramovich puts Chelsea up for sale as Fridman and Avon quit Letter One. And we actually went onto the Letter One website to find out exactly what it is, and the profiles for Mikhail Fridman and Petr Avon have already been removed, which is quite interesting. They move quickly. The Mirror goes with, for his sake, for his future, stop, with a picture of a Ukrainian man holding his baby in a bomb shelter. On to the Times, which leads with Putin lays waste to cities and Russian captives cry for their mothers. And the Sun has Clear-Offski, Abramovich flogs with Chelsea in panic. And there's a picture of Abramovich there. The Daily Star, last of all, goes with nuclear heroes as brave defenders block Russian troops from the road to nuclear reactor. And those are today's headlines. And so to our first story, I'm able to speak again. I've got my breath back. Another victory for Ukraine in the propaganda war, with lots of stories emerging today. One in particular on social media about the Ukrainian people treating their Russian captives with great humanity, Diane.
Well, yes, if you want to read about this, I think The Times is a great place to start. So, the Ukraine...
Very encouraging plug for The Times there, Diane. I didn't realise you were so pro-Times.
Well,
Are you on a retainer?
I'm just nominating I'll be nominating different papers so that our viewers can have a selection of what they wish to peruse.
OK, that's good. You're balanced.
Yes, of course. So, Russian captives have been actually crying for their mothers. So soldiers that have been captured by the Ukrainians it's just incredible. There have been pictures, there have been photos and videos, and the Ukrainians have been giving the Russian soldiers hot cups of tea and bread, and they've allowed them to make video calls to their mothers. And it kind of proves that a hot cup of tea sort of brings out the best in everyone, really. And it's sort of a moment of humanity and compassion when people are getting together. And it's very interesting because the stories tell us that the soldiers who are quite young, like one of them said that he was born in 2003. I didn't realise they were still making people, apparently in 2003. But they said that they were sent in as a peacekeeping force. So the soldiers have been told they've gone into Ukraine as a peacekeeping force to defend Kyiv. But I've gone in as a peacekeeping force every Christmas with my family. And I have never been sent in with a gun. I mean, I've always been sent in with board games, mince pies, and a lot of alcohol to keep the peace.
Steve, what's so incredible about this war is the role of phones and everyone videoing everything has meant that we see a different story that we don't, a human side and a everyday side that we haven't seen in previous conflicts.
And I was thinking, I wonder
Sorry
how
to cut you off, Diane. I was under strict instructions to move on to Steve. I beg your pardon. Very rude of me.
I concur with the sentiment.
Yeah.
I mean, if anything, if we learn nothing else from EastEnders, so a nice cup of tea sorts everything out. And you're right, we wouldn't have seen these events, which may well have happened in previous wars, because they can now be filmed in high def and then shared instantly. We see this human side, this sign of human compassion, and it's good, because otherwise we could just be seeing the front pages, which are depressing, which are very much the kind of psychopathy of Putin based. And now it's just good to see someone who's sharing that warmth with another human.
I've just been working on a huge project about World War II, and again, it's not a story you hear, but human beings they almost become more humane in certain times during wars, and that's a side to this conflict that we're seeing. And also, it changes the nature of propaganda. The saying is the first casualty of war is truth, but, you know, with distributed media and so on, we're seeing a bit more truth than we otherwise would.
Yeah, we're also seeing more lies. It's not just that we're seeing more truth, we're seeing more people posting screenshots that have clearly been re-edited to try and prove their own point.
As ever, the annoying voice of sanity and reason. We're seeing more media is what we're seeing. So we move on to our next story. And the first Ukrainian city to be controlled by the Russians.
Yes, this is the Telegraph saying that it looks like Kherson becomes the first major city under Russian control, or although even then there are some question marks, because they're basing this on a cryptic message on Facebook that the mayor of the city said that they'd had armed visitors at a meeting, and there had been concessions, without mentioning the Russian army by name, although I suppose if you're in Kherson, which other army's rocking up to try and do these kind of things? However, to take some of the quotes, which I think are really interesting, I didn't promise anything to them, said the mayor. I have nothing to promise. Let it be for now. The flag above us is Ukrainian. So the message itself very explicitly says not been taken over, but the subtext. Why would you be having to say this if you weren't at gunpoint?
Diane, what are your thoughts on this one? You've got the lurgy.
I've got the cough.
Whatever it is.
It is the cryptic message. It's like, follow the trail, turn over the leaf, follow the sunset. It's all a bit... Yeah, I understand. I mean, there could be groups of insurgents. So because in a war, you do have a lot of arms flooding into the country. You've got a lot of different arms going to different groups. And there will be, unfortunately, sort of Russian insurgency groups that are sort of building up. So, and they could be posing as legal Ukrainian groups, a little bit like the People's Republic of Donetsk. They held an illegal election that barely anybody voted in, and miraculously they went, we now control it. And that sort of happened back in 2014-15. So you're right. It is odd that they've been so cryptic with this. Yeah, so that is but yeah, it's very sad that there is a city that seems to have now been sort of held by the Russians.
Just the city is right in the south on the Black Sea, and I presume a big port, and I imagine it was one of, just on the basis of where it is, one of the easiest to take.
Yeah, but also Putin loves the Black Sea. He's got a Dasha, which is a holiday house in Sochi. So I reckon he's just sort of like trying to add a few more, trying to get a little port further up the coast. You know what I'm saying?
Maybe. Sorry, Steve, I cut you off then. I beg your pardon. Right, the Telegraph is next, and Russia's banks are on the brink, Diane.
Yes, so Putin has realised that he's got a massive problem, and he's signed a decree banning Russians from leaving the country with more than £7,500 or $10,000 in foreign currency, because obviously, clearly, everybody is realising that the ruble is crashing through the floor, and then it's crashing through the next floor and the next floor and the next floor. I mean, this whole building is just going to be just one empty column. I don't know how far the ruble is going to crash. And people are trying to keep the value of their savings by taking it out, obviously, in a foreign currency. And I mean, this is really more your sort of forte, Dominic, because when I read things like foreign currency instruments, I'm like, oh, a symbol made of euros. I'm not really totally sure what that is.
It would just be that, foreign currency,
A symbol
euros.
made of euros?
Well, sort of, and bonds, foreign-denominated bonds, and that kind of thing.
Righto.
But yeah, it's a bank run. It's an old-fashioned bank run, and there's a shortage of cash. There's a shortage of assets. What assets the banks do have, they have to sell in order to provide liquidity. Am I making you gloss over?
Well,
and in selling those, they have to sell them at reduced prices because there's no market for them.
Well, I mean, obviously, there's a big sort of... this shows that the sanctions are affecting the Russian people, and that this story was in the Telegraph. See, balance. There are these Twitter photographs of long queues outside the banks. Obviously, sort of, that's been rebranded and sent out by, you know, Moscow as, oh, no, these are just queues for Putin's latest biography. Horse God. But, yeah, so it's a clue that the people of Russia are now really feeling it. They know they're feeling it. So I think the hope is that they'll start to turn.
I have a question for you, Stephen, and it follows on from what Diane just said. The sanctions have affected ordinary, innocent Russians. It's decimated their net worth in many cases. And on the one hand, this is good because it means that it places further pressure on Putin. But is it right that Russian civilians should pay the price? Should they be caught in the crossfire?
Yes, because there's no other option, I'm afraid. I can see how you could construct an argument that it's not fair, but it's the pressure that would be required on... Route one would be, well, they should vote him out, and I know it's hard to you can vote him out, but then you need to change your political system so that you can. So actually, yeah, it is right. Because this is not the same as talking about whatever they used to... the euphemism they used to use for bombing normal civilians. What was the Second World War euphemism for it? I can't remember now. But that is wrong. But
it's going to come to me in about 5 minutes.
Yeah, I can't remember.
We're going to be doing the story about Hitler's Mercedes or something. It's going to come to me then.
You still fit in then. But yeah, no, for it to be economic pressure, of course, and it should change the opinion of the people about their leader, and then they have a responsibility to do something.
There you go. The voice of Kent always talks it. The Sun next, and Roman Abramovich with quite a striking act of generosity. Or is it self-preservation, Diane? What do we think?
Well, Roman Abramovich has confirmed that he has put Chelsea up for sale, and that is the football club, not the location, although it wouldn't surprise me if he owned the whole damn thing. And he is also going to be writing off £1.5 billion. He's written it off, which was what Chelsea, the club, owed him. I don't know how rich you have to be to write off 1.5... Oh, don't worry about it. Really? My word. Not only that, he has said that the net proceeds from the sale will be donated to a charitable foundation for the benefit of all the victims of the war in Ukraine. Now, being devil's advocate, I do think, is this his other oligarch friends who have had things confiscated? Do they count as victims of the war in Ukraine? But that's me being a little bit cheeky, I suppose. Yeah, and he's also now selling all his UK properties because Boris Johnson was questioned about whether he was going to personally sort of sanction Roman Abramovich, and sort of Boris went, which translated to, I can't comment about particular cases. But he's sort of selling it like he's in some kind of mad divorce. Do you know what I mean? Like when you see those programs where there's this like divorce split and quickly like they just sell all their assets because they don't want the ex-wife to get hold of it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that going on. He has to move quickly before they get seized, and he's probably buying himself some goodwill. Or maybe, and there seems to be a bit of a dig at Putin going on with this as well, Steve.
And I think whenever you've got a billionaire, the answer's money. As much as you might like to try and find another reason for it, no. If you've got that many billions, you're going to act swiftly to protect as many of those billions as you can. I think this is incredibly
He's got some losses to write off against next year's taxes. I suppose.
Yeah, and he could afford the best accountants to make it work. I think this is purely just about protecting the money side of things, because he could be sanctioned pretty nastily, and if anything, it's better for us. I think the more times we can get things, this fire sale version of expensive properties out there, good.
I mean, you have to say, I think to get where Roman... Go on, sorry, you go.
Well, I was going to say, one of the things that made me laugh, it said that he was trying to sell all his villas in England. Villas? I was like, this man is so rich, he imports the sun?
There are some Roman villas from back in the day.
Is that what they called it? Because he owns...
Good one. No. My friend's a carpenter, and he worked on Roman Abramovich's house down near Guildford, down the A3 somewhere, down Farnham or somewhere like that. Anyway, by the by, we've reached the end of part one. Stay tuned to listen to us discuss who's just bought Hitler's car, a Scouse Nan who woke up with a Russian accent, and much, much more. That's after the break. We'll see you in a moment.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate.
From all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
Make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel.
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
That you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is Headliners.
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for...
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners. My name's Dominic Frisby, and on the show with me tonight we have the glamorous Steve N. Allen and former chemist Diane Spencer. I got that one the wrong way round. Right, The Guardian is next. Steve, 93% of serious pollutions are going unprosecuted, and I've sort of twisted the numbers a bit, but the point remains, I think.
Yes. Environment Agency downgraded 93% of prosecutions for serious pollution. And the more hopeful side of my brain hears that and thinks, oh, maybe this is good. They looked at it again and found out, no, it was just a floating chocolate bar. Sadly not. It's England's Environment Agency downgrading these serious polluters. People are saying this is because of issues to do with funding, not having enough money to actually take some of these to court. Frontline staff said that some of the perpetrators should have faced the highest sanctions according to a leak. Great, there's another leak. And they had 495 serious incidents, but were told to drop the cases or sometimes just send a serious letter or to just take no action at all. There's no point sending a nasty letter to someone who's breaking environmental rules, because they'll just throw it away in the wrong bin. And the claim is that it's becoming pointless. The Environment Agency will be pointless if it's toothless, if there's no money to it. And we should care, because it's the water around us that's going to have stuff floated in it.
Yeah, I've narrated documentaries about serial pollutions. It's not like Britain's worst waste or something, and it was horrifying. Some of the stuff went on. Diane, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I thought it was quite interesting that it said they were not going to investigate these things, even those that are part of major or serious operations dealing with organised crime. And I thought, is that like when 200 kilos of cocaine washes up on the beach in Essex? Is that what counts as like crime pollution? Or is it just like, oh, old swag bags and fake moustaches and balaclavas? I mean, what is this?
Well, I think it's you set up a business and you go to companies, you go, we'll take away your waste. And they take away loads and loads of waste, and then they go and dump it somewhere. They'll lease a bit of land for like a year or two. They'll dump all the waste on the land, take the money, and then the company will go bust.
So not like old tyres from getaway vehicles?
That kind of thing. But it's more like toxic. A lot of the time it's toxic chemical waste, and they dump it, and the company's gone bust, and then there's no one to prosecute, and there's just a load of toxic waste that they need to get rid of. It's pretty nasty stuff.
And the government are actually spending time saying we are cracking down on this, but then not funding the place that would investigate it. This is... like, yeah, if you get rid of the law of murder, there won't be as many people convicted, or if you stop testing, you won't find as many COVID cases.
Inconsistencies at the heart of big government. It's as though big government doesn't work, Steve. Right. Right, what is this in the Telegraph, Diane? Is Michael O'Leary of Ryanair, is he an anti-vaxxer?
No, he's not. I don't think so. So Ryanair is consulting with staff because they want to end... I love it. End face masks by the end of May because, you know, it's Ryanair. They've already ended legroom. They've ended luggage allowance. They're going to end face masks. Of course, he has to consult the staff, and that's what he's doing. And because, you know, if they remove their masks, they might have to smile or talk to people again, and that would just be terrible, really. So Ryanair is hopeful that this will occur and people can sort of fly again. And they were hoping to actually fly to Ukraine, which is quite interesting. They had hoped to fly 4 million passengers to Ukraine this year, but obviously, and they're expanding.
4 million?
Yeah, to Ukraine. Well, I mean, I don't know about you, but now that I've seen Ukraine on the news and the way that they've reacted to being invaded, as soon as the Russians clear off, I am going. Those people look amazing.
Yeah, but even I agree. I think it's going to be a tourist hotspot all of a sudden, and more than a tourist hotspot, a business hotspot, a charity hotspot, all sorts. But still, but I presume that 4 million was before. Yes,
it was. I mean, Ryanair, it was trying to move in on... it is already Europe's biggest airline, held together by gaffer tape and a stubborn refusal to give refunds.
You mock Ryanair, but I've thrown on some of Eastern Europe's budget airlines, and really they make Ryanair look luxurious. Now, I'm reliably informed that, in fact, Jet2Go is the first airline that ended masks. Did you know that, Steve?
No, I did not know.
Jet2, not Jet2Go.
Oh, yeah, Jet2.
It would be the follow-up to Jet.
Is that what she did after Gladiator? Part of me is surprised by this. Ryanair, if the headline would have said, Ryanair keeps masks but charges you £15 for them, I would have believed that. If they could have found a way of not letting you take one on board but forcing you to buy one when you're on there.
No, they're going to charge you an extra fee not to wear a mask.
I bet you, they'll find a way to do it.
It's face luggage. Yeah, that's what it is.
Very good. Now, England's treatment of Wales is akin to Putin's treatment of the Ukraine, says a Plaid Cymru MP. This is from The Independent.
Yes. Hewell Williams. Might be getting that wrong, and I apologise, because they're my people. I'm descended of the Welsh people. He's come under fire for comparing Putin's claims on Ukraine to England's treatment of Wales. If you have watched the video of the missile going into a civilian area and you watched that and thought, yeah, it's just like me being Welsh, you've made a judgment there, I'm sure of it, and you've got it wrong.
On the other hand, last time I went to Wales, some very nice citizens gave me a hot cup of tea and a little pasty.
Did you cry?
I cried, and they let me FaceTime my mum.
He said, for us in Wales, there's a particular menace to Vladimir Putin's words. He said, he basically just compared it into the same way that you've got a ruler who's miles away saying that he's in charge of the area. I mean, if you follow this guy's metaphor, the ruler of Wales is called Boris, which is is kind of a Russian name. You see, anyone can play this game. But I am surprised by the way in which... Sure, he wrote this in a newspaper column, and every so often I churn out a newspaper column, and I think you'd read it back to check the tone. And I'm surprised he didn't get that this is probably, it sits uncomfortably when people are dying and he's complaining about the Welsh political system.
Do you think he was greedy for hits, Diane? Was it clickbait?
Oh, I think...
Inflammatory journalism?
Well, possibly. I mean, unfortunately, it does seem, according to this article in The Independent, that the breakup of Wales, which I really don't want, I should stress that for anybody watching, used to be backed by just 3% of the population, but the support for that has hit 40% recently. So I think you're right. I think he's trying to rile up that 40% with a bit of this, like, inflammatory, clickbaity kind of title. But it's like, please don't. Not now.
I think when you have an unpopular Prime Minister, as Boris was until quite recently, you tend to get agitation to leave and to break up the UK. So Boris needs to up his game. Right, where has the UN Environment Assembly flown to this time? The answer is Nairobi in Kenya. 3,400 delegates from 175 different countries have jetted there to protect the environment. This is from the... No way I'm framing that one for you. This is from the Environment. This is from The Guardian, Diane, I beg your pardon.
Well, yes. So... the UN Environmental Assembly it's a UN Environment Assembly resolution, and it's been hailed as the biggest climate deal since Wetherspoons ditched all their plastic straws. So essentially they have, the world leaders and representatives have come together from 173 odd countries, and they've agreed to develop a legally binding treaty on plastics. Which I have never seen since my mother and my father decided to have separate credit cards. So essentially, since sort of 1950 to 2017, they estimated that 9.2 billion tonnes of plastics produced are now waste. And I think 95% of that was the troll dolls that came out in the 90s, possibly some of Barbie's used motors. But they've now got this resolution that they're going to look after the plastics throughout their whole life cycle. So it's not so when you make a plastic, you have to think about it from its production and its design, but you also now have to think about how it's disposed. And also, this is the first time in an environmental resolution that the waste pickers, the people who go around and they sort of sort out these massive landfill sites, are actually recognised as an important part of the environment. Although waste picker, I'm pretty sure is what my mum called me when I wouldn't leave the buffet alone. But yeah,
so Steve, where do you stand on plastics? The greatest substance ever invented by man, or a curse, or both?
The first one. One of the greatest substances, the chemistry that goes into it. You know me, I love a bit of chemistry.
You're so glamorous, though.
That's true. I'm glamorous because I know how to take a monomer and polymerise that bad boy. Next thing you know, you've got a plastic. But the problem is, as a substance, it's so malleable. You can do so many things with it, and what we choose to do with it is make disposable items. We've invented a substance that will last for half of 1,000 years, half a millennium, and all of a sudden we go, oh, let's just make one thing with it and chuck it in the bin. We're getting it wrong. Plastic is fine. We're the ones who are wrong.
I am going to do a new UN resolution, and that is to put Steve N. Allen in charge of everything.
Seconded.
The Independent is next, and the mystery of Stonehenge has been solved by you, presumably.
Yeah, I went down there, queued up on the A303. It's annoying, isn't it? Now, apparently it was a solar calendar. Great. Has your life changed? I mean, I don't want to diss someone's research, but I didn't really care too much. It makes sense, though, because I couldn't get by without a solar calendar, whatever one of those is. I'd definitely end up...
You need to take a 4-day trip to Stonehenge to tell the time.
Yeah. Well, apparently it was ancient Egyptians used It is a solar calendar. I put it in the wrong place. I don't want to tell them how to do their feng shui on this. But it's Professor Timothy Darvill concluded that the site was designed as a calendar based on 365.25 days. I'm surprised by that because I thought the reason we had 360 degrees in a circle is because ancient Greeks thought there were 360 days in a year, and that's why we divided up the full circle into 360. So I guess the ancient Egyptians were ahead of it on working that out. But the downside is this pours cold water on the idea that it was used as a place to sacrifice a goat, which might be hard to come by, or a virgin, harder to come by, or a virgin goat, very, very much difficult to get. Or maybe both. I guess you could do that on your calendar. I
guess, Diane, it could be a place of sacrifice and a time-telling device.
Well, I mean, I have actually touched one of the stones at Stonehenge. In fact, I've touched quite a lot of them because they used to open them up during the solstice. And you can tell the time very accurately during that festival because when the sun goes down, you start drinking. And when the sun comes back up, you know it's time to fall asleep. It's magic.
Oh, my goodness me.
Buy a watch.
Right, we move on now. If one thing has stood out in the propaganda wars between Russia and Ukraine, it is how much more telegenic Volodymyr Zelensky is than Vladimir Putin. So much so that Channel 4 are about to screen the sitcom that shot him to fame, Diane.
Yeah, well, Channel 4, never to miss a trick. They snatched the bake-off and now they're quickly grabbing hold of President Zelensky. So they're going to air a couple of programmes because he shot to fame in this comedy called Servant of the People, where he apparently becomes a schoolteacher who accidentally becomes the Ukrainian president after his campaign against government corruption goes viral. And at the same time, Channel 4 will also be screening an actual documentary about Mr. Zelensky. I mean, it's really exciting because there are obviously parallels there where you have somebody who's come from entertainment and is in charge. And I'm trying to be careful here because I know you do have megalomaniac tendencies, Dominic. So steady that ship.
Boris is literally watching headliners every night and quaking because he knows what's coming.
But you've got parallels to sort of Donald Trump, who was obviously, you know, The Apprentice. You've got Ronald Reagan, who was an actor. You've got Arnold Schwarzenegger, who the government of governator. You know, so it's quite exciting it's inspiring as well, I suppose.
And Steve, Zelensky was the voice of Paddington. Presumably in the Channel 4 run of this sitcom, you are going to be the voice of Zelensky, is that right?
Already the voice of reason, though, so I think I'm signed up on that contract.
We've seen how comedy and reason and all this doubles up.
Yeah, they should.
Turbulent times.
I've loved this, though, because ordinarily, I suppose we all do it, we turn up on various media, opine, and someone on Twitter will go, what do you know about it as a stand-up comedian? And now you go, comedians are very integral to this story.
Right, we've reached the end of part 2. If you want to know more about ghost ships and the council worker who faked her own death to avoid a driving fine, then stay tuned. First it's the weather, then ads. We'll see you in a jiffy.
Hello again, I'm Aidan McGivern from the Met Office. Cloudy and damp for most of us overnight, but the extensive cloud cover will keep it frost-free. Then some brighter weather emerges on Thursday, either side of a slow-moving weather front, which is crossing the country as we speak. Another one following behind, catching up with it. So generally a cloudy and damp zone associated with these fronts, and that is widespread during the evening and overnight, even reaching Orkney, not quite as far as Shetland for the time being. Some breaks in the cloud developing for East Anglia in the southeast and also for Northern Ireland behind the second weather front. But in between, a lot of cloud and the rain turning more persistent for Western Scotland, North Wales, as well as the southwest and South Wales as we start off Thursday. A frost-free start for most, temperatures 7 to 9 Celsius at the crack of dawn. Then these two weather fronts I mentioned, they squeeze together and bring one coherent band of cloud and outbreaks of rain through central parts of the country. Sunny skies emerging for East Anglia in the southeast, 10 to 13 Celsius here, 8 to 10 where it's raining in the middle, and then something a little fresher for Western Scotland, Northern Ireland, 8 or 9 Celsius with brighter skies and a few showers. Into Thursday night, and the cloud and rain very slowly edges east. so that by the end of the night it's into eastern England, eastern Scotland with snow over the Grampians. But clearer spells in western Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales and the southwest. Touch of frost possible in places, most places frost-free as we start off Friday. And it's another gloomy start, another damp start for many, but this time it's eastern Scotland, northeast England into the Midlands and the southeast, most affected by the cloud and rain. Brighter skies, but showers following into western parts and temperatures trending downwards. That downward trend continues on Saturday and Sunday, but for most it also turns drier and brighter.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome to part 3 of Headliners. I'm your host, Dominic Frisby. With me looking at the papers are GB News' answer to Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, Steve N. Allen and Diane Spencer. Now, this is some story from The Sun. A tanker carrying rather a lot of merchandise has sunk in the Atlantic, Steve.
Yeah, it was called the Ghost Ship, which already is exciting. If you've got a story with a ghost ship in it, it's good. 'Twas carrying a bounty of top-end cars. There be Bentleys in them there ships.
There be Maserati.
That's a good one to do in that. The Felicity Ace. It was transporting some of these supercars to America. It was abandoned by crew after it caught fire. That was 13 days ago.
1,300 supercars.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And now they're at the bottom of the Atlantic. So if you want a cheap car, get down there. SpongeBob's going to be loving it.
Do we know how the fire started?
Well, no, but you're going to love what one of the theories is. There's a theory, because it was transporting both electric and non-electric cars. You're already excited, aren't you?
I know, I know what's coming.
The lithium-ion batteries.
Don't start him off.
But, so I love that.
Lithium does, it is, what is it? Not flammable, there's a word for it. It does catch fire. You get the oxide wrong.
Yeah. But then also, I mean, I don't want to go too much into the chemistry here, the spirit of petroleum, also famously quite flammable. So let's not pretend all these electric cars, they catch fire.
No, you totally projected what I was going to say.
But yeah, so, and all we can hope is that some of the airbags went off and some of these cars are going to float up on a beach, because that'll be a nice find.
Yeah, right? I couldn't help reading this, and part of me was going, is this some kind of insurance scam? The same thing occurred to you, Diane, when you...
The only thing that occurred to me, too fast, too furious, too few fire extinguishers. That was it.
And it was being very nice, and too fast, too furious, and too few fire extinguishers, and the boat was actually being tugged. I want to say too tugged. It was being tugged. It's amazing. You didn't think that a boat of that size would be tugged, but it was.
So I used to live right by the Thames in Gravesend, before you think I'm fancy, and you could see these little tugboats pulling these huge things. It's amazing.
Yeah, but up the Thames, fine, because they navigate them in the Thames, but across the Atlantic...
But it's just the fact that you're on water, and it's amazing that a small little boat can pull a huge one.
That's physics, not chemistry.
That's true.
Right, Australian politicians next. If I was an aspiring politician, one thing I wouldn't do is buy Hitler's old car.
Well, I mean, so this is from The Times. The Australian politician Clive Palmer has done a double whammy in that not only has he bought Hitler's old Mercedes, but he's bought it from a Russian tycoon, so therefore he may be breaking sanctions against the tycoon. Now, you may say, well, how is it bad to buy... Some people would argue, yeah, but isn't this just a historical car? Like, it's not like a Stephen King car. Like, just because Hitler owned it, it doesn't make it an evil car. Even though Mussolini sat in it, it doesn't make it an evil car. It's just a car. But people were saying that by spending this amount of money on this particular car, you are glorifying Nazis. And I would say, no, it's not the purchase of the car, it's the banners and the fireworks he puts around it when he displays it in his motor museum. That's the issue. If you're going to buy that car, you need to paint jerk and loser on the side, and then you're not glorifying Nazis.
I have to say, if I was driving past a museum that gave me the opportunity to see Hitler's bulletproof Mercedes, I would stop off at the museum to see that Mercedes. I think I'd be interested.
To spit on it?
Just to look at it.
Would you ever want to own something like that?
No, but he wanted to put it in a museum.
He has a motor museum, so he has collected cars. It's just he clearly wants to collect an evil car.
We don't know how much he paid for it. Quite interesting. What would you wouldn't pay anything for it?
No, I think
I'd give it 50 grand.
The insurance must be a nightmare. Previous one careful owner, not really careful, to be fair.
What was quite interesting is powered by an 8-litre engine. If you think most cars on the streets today would be probably 2-litre engines, and it got to 0 to 62 in 23 seconds, which is very slow.
Which means, yeah, you could buy it so that you could beat that car at the lights. That feels like a victory, beating Hitler at the lights.
You beat Hitler at the lights, he shoots you. Right. There's nothing like quoting somebody out of context, especially when they've got the job that you wanted to get. Rory Stewart has claimed Liz Truss said diplomacy is really boring, Steve.
Yes.
From the Mirror.
And, I mean, this was a while ago. I imagine she's changed her mind. Because diplomacy back then, when she was thinking this, was all about everyone's going on about Brexit and absolutely no one's being shot at. So
you've got to go and listen to endless talks at the EU and that kind of thing. Yeah,
that stuff. Whereas now, so this is, as you say, Rory Stewart. It was talking in his new podcast. Oh, great. Someone else has got a podcast. It's called The Rest is Politics, hosted with Alistair Campbell. And I think too many people have podcasts. You can hear all about those thoughts in my new podcast, which I'll be mentioning on Twitter. Yeah, we've all got at least 3. But yeah, it does seem rather unkind. It feels, this is more the clickbait story, as you say, finding something which now seems even more bizarre, but he's just finding that one quote from a conversation ages ago.
Was this Rory Stewart's podcast or Alistair Campbell's?
They're doing one together. It says, yeah, the first episode of his new podcast with Alistair Campbell.
Oh, well, there we go. Have you got a podcast, Diane?
No.
What?
Good.
We found her. We found the one.
We found the one. Very good. Right, let's move on. And we have this wonderful story that doesn't need any jokes, really. The late comedian Malcolm Hardee was famous for sending in his tax return with just one word on it, deceased, written across the front. And it seems he may have inspired one Zoe Barnard, a council worker from West London.
OK, so this is in the Mirror. Now, this council worker told police she was dead. Now, if you tell the police you're dead, that's a clue that you're not. But so she told them that she was dead to avoid a drink driving conviction. And she tried to apply for her own death certificate, which I think is great. Cause of death, it's because your pants were on fire, because you're a liar. And they sort of wrote back. As you see, she feigned being her sister. And they wrote back to her saying, well, there is no death certificate because she hadn't registered her own death. You see, all you Elvis, he's out there somewhere, you know, he's not registered his death. And it just reads as a very kind of Scooby-Doo-esque kind of, oh, I would have got away with it too if it wasn't for you pesky administrators. But essentially, she has committed quite a few driving offences and...
driving without insurance, failing to stop, driving while disqualified and careless driving, for which she received a 6-month curfew, wow, and a 12-month ban.
She's a menace.
She was digging pretty deep in the hole.
When you did that bit, it sounded like Jim Carrey in Liar Liar, when he just lists all the traffic offences he's done while speeding. The thing that gets me about this story, she's only 38, though. If you can only fake your death once, and then you have to spend the rest of your life pretending to be dead. It would have been easier to have a bit of curfew and just not drive for a while, surely.
Yeah, I guess some people don't think it through.
Yeah, voice of reason.
All I can infer from that. Right, Russia's in the news again, and this time for infiltrating the accent of a Scouser nan, Steve. And I should warn viewers, this is from the Daily Star.
There's the caveat right at the start. Well, this grandmother from Liverpool has trained herself to speak again after having a stroke, but she found that when she could speak, she was speaking with a Russian accent. Now, that would not be optimal at the best of times. But right now, you're going to get picked on. It's going to come with some flack. The only thing that would be worse than that would be developing a Welsh accent if we listen to the words of MP Hewell Williams. I'm sure he thinks that's up there in the same category. But this 72...
Nice little callback there.
Yeah, 72-year-old Rosie Griffiths, she had the fall, it was in 2014, and was told by the doctors, well, she couldn't walk and talk, and they thought it might never happen. She taught herself to talk again by singing, because she could still access the part of the brain that singing happened in, and managed to move these across, but she didn't realise she had this Russian accent. Everyone was telling her that she had it, which for a while you must think, this is a cruel prank to be pulling on me. But it turns out she had it. If you've taught yourself to speak from singing and you develop a Russian accent, it's your fault for singing Tattoos All the Things She Said, which is a niche reference that not everyone will remember. Remember that band, Tattoo?
No.
Well, there you go. Should have found a better reference.
Well, never going to... Has that happened to you after a heavy night and a knock and you've woken up with a Russian accent?
I mean, I was always optimistic that if I ever had a clonk on the head, I'd just wake up and know Chinese. But I guess it would be a little bit like living with someone sort of who's in a musical. You know what I mean? Like, because she's learnt to sing first. So it was like, oh, my God, Nan's talking again, sort of. What do you mean? I can speak again. And then
she also taught herself to walk by doing the dance moves. So she's a triple threat. That's her.
My godfather was like that. He's no longer with us, sadly, but he was an old musical actor, and you'd say any line, I'm walking down the street, and he would just break into a song, an old musical song, I'm walking down the street, and it was fun to be with. Oh. Anyway, so possibly next, the best story in the entire history of headliners, Baked Beans' most dedicated fan. This is from the Metro, and it's yours, Diane.
Oh, I love this. So I have seen this gentleman, Captain Beanie. I've seen him before, and he has got his eyebrows tattooed to look like baked beans. And he said that some say that I am totally mad and crazy, but in hindsight, it is indeed part of my colourful persona. Hindsight, I love it. I just think it's good that he is going with baked beans tattooed, and it wasn't another vegetable like eggplants.
Yeah, let's take a look at the picture, Steve. There we go. There is the baked bean tattoo. And that could be you, clean-shaven, Steve, on another day.
Yeah, with my natural bean eyebrows rather than these ones that I paint on before the show. I mean, look, use your face, do whatever you want with it, but it speaks to greater problems there, doesn't it? If someone thinks it's time to bean up...
Another news story where the protagonist has perhaps not thought it through. Right, on to a nation mourns at this next story. The Sainsbury supermarket chain has closed its cafes. Sainsbury's, possibly the blandest supermarket in the world. It's the supermarket with no identity, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's lost even more of that identity. A moment just to think about the sad loss of those Sainsbury's cafes, which, and I've thought about this, I thought I'd never been in one, but I remembered I was once waiting for a car to be serviced, and there's a Sainsbury's near a Toyota garage in North London, and I went in there. So that's about 15 years ago. So I've been in one once, but I'm of the age where if things have been happening in my 20s and 30s, they must continue, because I fear change and we cannot have progress. But here's the moment where I take the story out the back and shoot it for you again. They're closing the cafes, they're reopening them as food halls where you'll have concessions with things like gourmet burger kitchen, some Starbucks moving in. Oh, so better.
Yeah.
It really is just...
It is
right.
an improvement. Capitalism wielding its magic. Diane, what are your thoughts on this closure?
Well, I kind of understand it. I mean, but my local Sainsbury's is actually built on a slope, so we weren't allowed to have a cafe because the sausages rolled off the plate.
Ha! There you go. Right, now we have a couple of minutes left to fill in the programme before we end, and we are out of stories, but perhaps the big story is not so much in the newspapers, it is in Steve's private life. Your wife is about to give birth, due day after tomorrow, I gather.
Yeah.
Many congratulations.
Thank you. I've decided to not use the modern phrase that you get Prince Harry and Meghan saying, like, we're pregnant. I've not been using that phrase. We're not pregnant because we've not stopped drinking for 9 months.
And have you thought about names yet?
Thought about names, but we've come to an agreement that we're not telling anyone any of the names we've thought of, because as soon as you come up with this idea of a name that you love, and people can't hold in their micro-expressions, and I'm quite observant for these things, so if you go, oh, we like this name, and people will go, ah, and then you've got to throw the name away.
You're talking to Diane Spencer, who I was born the year they were married, and people apparently, they used to look into my pram and go, oh, what's their name?
Did they know what was it an accident or was it deliberate from your parents?
My middle name's Elizabeth. You make up your mind.
Big royalists. I will say this, Steve. If it's a boy, Dominic is a really good name.
You are such a megalomaniac, it's crazy.
Al Murray once said that to me when my kid was born. He goes, you should call it Al Murray, and it made me laugh. So I've used the same joke, only I've changed the name. And Diane's a lovely name if it turns out to be a boy.
Or a boy these days, 2022.
Exactly. I would just say, go big, go bold, and having your first kid is the most beautiful experience ever, and so I wish you all the very best with it. We wish you happiness and everything else.
Next time I'm on, I could look very tired, let's be honest.
And it will be late. For sure it will be late. The first one is always late.
Because young people idle, aren't they? Is that the point?
It just takes its time. You know, mum is nature's vessel. It's not so much that young people are idle, it's just always late. Anyway, enjoy it, and that is all we have time for, ladies and gentlemen, on today's show. Thank you to my guests, Stephen Allen and Diane Spencer, named after Diana Spencer. And thank you to you at home or wherever you are for watching. Headliners will be back at the same time tomorrow evening at 11 p.m. and then again at 5 a.m. I'll be hosting, so make sure you tune in. Until then, cheerio.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.